What is up, everybody? It is Tuesday, December 13th. I'm here with Ben Shoop. It is the Shoop and Aye-Aye-Ajay show. We're back with another week of covering the Buffalo Bills and what they've been up to. Coming off a 20-12 victory over the Jets. Cole Beasley is back in town, and so is Smoke Brown. Ben, how you doing today?
Pretty good, pretty good. Another Bills week where we get to take in the win, and now Saturday night, Miami's coming here. It's gonna be a cold one. They might need a few heaters on their bench, but hey, got a big game coming up. I think we can clinch to the division, I believe, if we win on Saturday. But we'll see if we can do it.
Yeah, what a turn of events in Miami at 8-3. Then they play San Fran, Brock Purdy, who's on a tear right now. Obviously in a really good system over there, but Miami really, they were a team that, I think they're still scary just because of the fact that they have so much speed, and Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Gesicki, and they got a couple other guys. I can't name them right now, but they got a couple other guys that can contribute in the slot. And then their defense isn't bad as well. They have Xavier Howard, and they obviously added Bradley Chubb, so they have a couple of pieces that can scare you. But it's crazy to me how a script can change so much. 2 weeks ago, we were talking about how this game is probably for the division, and now, I mean, technically it's not. The Bills could lose and still, win out with the division. So, huge game, but still a lot of things have changed since 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I think it's like I said in past episodes. I think you mentioned it as well. Like the NFL season's a long season, right? Like it's ups and downs. The NFL is probably the number one sport with overreactions. With everybody just 1 week. Oh, this team's not good anymore. Well, it's 1 week. The NFL is weird with how teams can lose, teams can get blown out that aren't supposed to get blown out. And that's kind of what happened with the Bills during that little stretch where they struggled. They lost 2 games in a row, and then people were saying hitting the panic button. But in reality, it's the NFL. At this point in the season last year, we were 7-6. I mean, that's we're in a way better spot than we were last year. Although, which was funny to me, which is our points against and points for is almost identical to last year. But if you look at it, we were 0-5 at this point in close one-score games. So it's just that little difference where close games can really make or break your whole season. Obviously, this season we've been getting off to a great start, and we had that little spurt in the middle. But yeah, I mean, it's funny to see how everybody switches up every week. I mean, but it's that's the NFL. It's one of those things that makes you feel a lot of emotions. I don't know about you. Were you up and down a lot, or were you kind of just the same the whole time?
I mean, the Minnesota game was probably it was probably the most frustrating game. I thought that the Bills should have won that game. That was the game where I was, the most upset, I think. But no, I mean, like you said, long season. I think there's a lot that goes into it: injuries, matchups, luck. Injuries are a big part of it. I think luck's a big part of it. So yeah, it's nice how the Bills have kind of flipped that script on the one-score games. Looking back from last year now to this year, they've really flipped that script. But obviously, the big news today was that this morning it was reported. I think, let me give credit to where credit's due. Louis Del Rio from WIVB actually was on it, and he, broke the news that Cole Beasley was going to, sign to the Bills practice squad. Obviously, a very controversial player, but I think by most, if you're a fan of the team and you've been a fan for the last couple of years, I think he's a guy that most Bills fans would appreciate. And I think he's a really good player. He's been a really good player for this team. They've been better with him in the lineup. Their passing offense has been better when he's been out there. The last game he played with the Bills was last year against Kansas City, where he had 6 catches for 60 yards. Really good game. He only played, 14 snaps this year with Tampa Bay. And, he had 4 or 5 catches, and, he obviously stopped. But, I mean, maybe he was in Tampa Bay and he thought, maybe Buffalo is going to want me. And I would be down to, sign back there and make a late postseason run. You got John Brown also coming back, which, I think Josh Allen was the biggest part of this whole thing coming together. I think Josh Allen wanted these guys around. They're the guys that kind of shaped and molded his career to what it is now. And to get those guys back down the stretch here, I think is very important. Even if they're not contributing on the field, to have those guys in the locker room around the guys. Beasley mentoring Shakir, John Brown out there. Maybe talking to Gabe Davis, getting him some juice on the outside. I think that's the biggest thing for me in terms of what it can do for this team. It's the experience. It's the how used to the Bills are with Beasley and Brown in that receiving room. So, pretty cool signing, pretty cool story. I know a lot of Bills fans are hoping for Jerry Hughes to get released, and he'll be the final piece of that puzzle of guys that made it. But for now, I don't know if we'll see a lot of them. I don't know how much juice Beasley has left in his tank. I don't know how much John Brown has left, but very, very intriguing to see what the Bills have up their sleeve here down the stretch.
Yeah, I've been big in this conversation with the whole Beasley because people have been saying it all season. We've been missing Beasley. We've really been missing him, and I think to an extent everybody was correct. Like, we're missing that style of receiver that can go in the slot and get open and get us 5-6 yards, can get us 8 yards. Because if you look at the yards after catch even on our team this year, it's pretty bad. Like, Davis is at 3.7, Knox is at 3.7, McKenzie's at 3.2. And if you look at the year before that, McKenzie was at 4.1. Diggs was actually pretty bad last year, but he's better this year. But Beasley, 4.3, 4.9. Last year he was 3.4, I think. So, or 3.7. So he went down a little bit, but that's what I think it does for the team is even if Beasley's not going to be the same Beasley he was in 2020, right? It still opens up the offense. You can see it when you watched when he was in Tampa for those 2 games. Teams were still so aware of where he was on the field. They're making sure that they got guys over him. They're making sure they're not letting him get these little routes. So it will, I think, open up the field for everybody else. And I think Allen wanting them back really shows something, and it shows more. And I think I forgot who I was talking to about this, but they said something along the lines of trust is a huge thing now in the NFL. As much as skill, yes, and everything, but if you can trust a receiver as a quarterback, that makes your job a lot easier. And that's the one thing with Cole Beasley that I think he brings to the table is that Josh Allen trusts this guy so much, right? He catches all the balls. He had the 10th highest catch rate in the year last year. And that was bad compared to the year before that. And it wasn't, it was 4% lower, but he was 4th in the league, tied for 2nd, I believe, actually, in 2020. So I think it just provides that safety net for him. It's that guy that, if he needs to go to somebody, you definitely remember all those big games, right? The Chargers one where after we're driving down the field, it's third and long, 2nd and long. Who's he going to? Beasley. Well, who's he? When he needed a big time play, he went to Beasley. Obviously, Diggs was there too, but Beasley was a lot of times that short yard, get him the ball, and see if he can just get us a few yards. And a lot of times he did. But I have been a little skeptical about this. I think he obviously has slowed down a little bit. That's another thing you can see with the Bucs tape, even last year. He slowed down a little bit, but he still catches the ball. He had 82 catches last year, right? That's the same amount he had in 2020. The only difference was his average yard per target and his yards after the catch went down. So I think it's just, yes, he might be a little slower, but if he gets open and he gets the ball thrown his way, you still know he's going to catch the ball because he just has some of the best hands. And he's just that secure safety net, and especially for a team like the Bills right now, who are top 3 in the league in drops. So I think it's a good signing. I'm a little skeptical about it still, but I don't know how much it will make of a difference. I'm hoping a lot, but it's one of those things where we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not expecting that much of a difference. Maybe he'll make a play or two, in a big moment. But I think the Bills are confident in what they have. I think McKenzie's, he has his moments, but and it was actually funny at McKenzie's tweet earlier today was, the floor is yours at Bees. I think McKenzie has proven to be a selfless player, and if anyone has a chance, whoever's listening, go over to Tyler Dunn's page on Twitter. It's a very good interview at Misters in East Aurora. He talks about, how he only has 38 targets, 38 receptions and 48 targets through whatever, 13 games they played. Last year, the Bills, Cole Beasley had 83 targets at this time. So just kind of like how McKenzie hasn't really been, utilized. And you saw it last week against the Jets in the 2-minute drill, which McKenzie also brought up in the interview, was with 2 minutes to go, Allen was looking right over the middle of McKenzie in the slot, and he was getting yards. Yeah, I think he had like back-to-back, completions to McKenzie, where he looked really good. So yeah, just if you want to see some, he's a very honest person. He said after this, if they win the Super Bowl this year, he's retiring, like straight up. McKenzie, 8 years, he's done everything he's wanted to do. He has a plan for after he's done. He's right where he wants to be. He's never, and the funny thing is too, also one more thing about that interview, was that he has never taken a sip of alcohol in his life, and he said if they win the Super Bowl this year, the Bills, that he will indulge and might end up in the hospital with Diggs next to him. So it was just a funny interview, very, very raw, very good emotion, and he's a very selfless player, and if Dorsey wants to utilize Beasley more, I think McKenzie would be okay with that, and he'd take what was given to him and whatever. So
yeah, I think that's the number one thing with this team is they're such a close knit group, right? They have one goal. They don't care who gets the credit. They don't care who's the one making all the big plays. They have one goal, and that's to lift the Lombardi Trophy at the end of the year. And they don't care. Like they really like Isaiah McKenzie. I bet you could not catch a single ball the whole playoffs, and if they win the Super Bowl, he would be happy. Like that's the type of team we have, and that's why I think you see all these guys coming back, like Shaq, Jordan Phillips, John Brown, AJ Klein, obviously Cole Beasley. I mean, you can go down the list of these guys coming back that want to play here, right? And it's because of the fact that this culture is just, we want to win. We want to win. We want to be the tougher team, the better team out there, and we want to make it hard on teams. And you're seeing it a lot, and you see players even play better here, like Shaq Lawson. I think he's playing better here than he did Miami or in New York with the Jets. So I think you see players play better here. Jordan Phillips is another big one where they just play better here, right? So it's good to see this culture. It's good to see people come back, even though, like we said, Beasley did obviously go on Twitter after he got cut and say, like he's fine with leaving. He kind of got some bad blood, but it was a crazy time, right? It was a weird time. The fans were button heads, everybody was button heads, but now I think he took some time off. The Bills fans, I think, especially a lot of them, most of them, I think, understand now where Beasley was coming from. And yeah, he was like before all of that, he was like a big fan favorite. Everybody loved him. It's really great. So yeah, I think this is a great signing. Or I'll say it's a good signing. I don't know. It might become a great signing, or it could be just one of those signings where it's like, oh, he's on the team again.
yeah, I've got a question for you. Actually, I just wrote an article about Isaiah Hodgins and what he's been doing with the Giants. It's an interesting conversation to have. I think Hodgins was a guy, obviously came in 2020. He was kind of injured his first couple of years, and then the preseason, he had everybody talking about, well, maybe he can find a spot in this roster. Maybe this is the year we finally see Hodgins, make an impact. I ended up going to the practice squad. Him and Blackshear, who also actually scored a touchdown in Carolina, they went unclaimed in the waiver claims, and then they were able to re-sign to the practice squad. So would you rather, this is just a hypothetical question, would you rather have Isaiah Hodgins on this roster over, Brown and Beasley? It's because I wrote an article on it. Check it out on Syracuse.com. It's actually, I actually just posted it. So if anyone's listening, check it out. But yeah, what do you think about Hodgins, or Beasley or Brown?
I mean, obviously Hodgins has been killing it with the Giants, right? He's had, I think, 2 touchdowns in 2 straight weeks. And there's another highlight of him going around where he just absolutely torches the defender. I'm blanking on who it was, but I liked Hodgins a lot. I think when he played, he showed that he had NFL talent, and that he showed that he could be a contributor to a winning football team. So it's a tough question. When it comes to Beasley or Hodgins, I think that's a little too tough of a question because they are such different receivers, right? Like Beasley's not going to do things that Hodgins is doing. Hodgins isn't going to do things that Beasley's doing. But when it comes to John Brown, I think I would take Hodgins. honestly. I mean, you get a younger guy, you get a guy that might have a little more burst in his step. Not saying that John Brown doesn't have the burst anymore, because we saw it on Sunday. I mean, if Allen leads him a little bit, he burned him. Like Sauce had to catch up to him, right? So I think John Brown, yes, he can still be a contributing factor to this team, but if I had to choose, I think I would choose Aye-Aye-Ajay just because of a little younger, and I really liked him down the road. And that was I think that was the one guy. I mean, like we talked about earlier in the year with Blackshear, right? Every year there's these people there's these players that people in the fan base will say, oh, they get cut. Oh, they're gonna do amazing here. They're gonna do amazing here. That usually doesn't happen, but Hodgins was the one guy where I really liked, and now you see he's in New York with the Giants, and he's really killing it. I mean, I think he's doing great. I know that fan base over there in East Rutherford loves him, so it's a tough one to see him go. I think I would rather have Hodgins. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have an answer to the question because I don't. I'm not sure yet. It's for me. It's a question that I'll be able to answer probably at the end of the year. Just for in terms of this year, I think that Brown and Beasley, obviously, the impact that they have on this locker room and the experience they have and the or relationship they have with the franchise quarterback here. I think that's almost as important as a young guy who's not proven, but who started to play well. I'm happy for Hodgins. I really liked him in the preseason. He's going to do good things. But for the Bills' sake, I think maybe that's what was best for them. Obviously, they liked Kumaro a little better for special teams, and they didn't believe Hodgins was there yet. And I think they felt like they had enough outside with Davis and Diggs and the slot McKenzie and Shakir had a really good camp in preseason. So I feel like they did have enough confidence during the preseason. But at the end of the day, it's a wait and see thing. It really depends on how the rest of the year shapes up.
Yeah, that actually brings me to a follow-up question for you. Is obviously Bean and McDermott have gotten some slack for how this whole receiver room and combinations have gone down. I don't think it's as bad as people think and are saying, but like when you cut two guys, then you bring them back, and then you lose Hodgins, and he goes somewhere else, and he's doing really well, right? It obviously will create some talk among the city, among the team. But what does it say to you that the reports came out that Allen asked for Beasley and Brown back, right? That's at least the reports right now. We don't know. I don't think we know for sure if he did, but that's what most people are saying. What does it tell you?
Yeah, that was reported. That was reported by a guy from like an actual person,
okay.
not like BS.
All right, yeah. So Allen asked for him back, right? You've seen it before with Aaron Rodgers. He's gotten very mad, right? Where they don't re-sign guys, they don't bring guys back that he would want. So what does it tell you that maybe, yes, Bean and McDermott messed up by cutting them in the first place or cutting Hodgins, but what does it tell you that they trust Josh Allen enough and Josh Allen trusts them enough to say, hey, I don't want these guys back, go get them, and then they come back? So what does it tell you that they're able to work together like that, get the guys that they think they need, and you get what the quarterback wants?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. It's an interesting question because I think it's a two-part. And I'll start with the first part is that I think during the preseason leading up to camp, I think the Bills and their staff and their offensive coordinator Dorsey with all those guys, Chad Hall, the receivers coach, I think all of them believed that they had enough talent on the outside to win and like score points with
a lot of Bills fans I think did too.
Yeah, with Davis, McKenzie. So I think they feel like they had enough. But I think maybe in the back of their mind they knew that Beasley was unsigned, and maybe like when they released him there was a chance, and they thought John Brown, maybe he was banged up a lot towards the end of his career in Buffalo. So maybe the Bills were like, maybe if we need some juice, we can get, these two guys. Maybe it wasn't in their minds, but when Josh came up and asked about it, I think that shows a lot of trust in your quarterback and a lot of, I mean, if you're paying a guy that much money, if he comes and tells you something and you see the success that like they've had together, I think that there's no question that wrong comment.
Oh, wrong comment. Sorry, we got a comment here. I clicked on the wrong one. Well, finish what you're saying, then I'll bring it up.
Yeah, no, just I think that at the end of the day, they thought they had enough on the outside before the year started. Now that the year's gone along and that players have gone down and Gabe Davis is dealing with an injury and Diggs has been not injured, but he's had the Miami game. I think they need they have guys that played with the organization before that Allen really liked that helped him become the quarterback and player and person he is today. And at the second that Allen was like, listen, these guys are available. It's December. We want to make a run. Let's go and, make a run. I think Bean was, whatever. I mean, clearly Bean was happy with it. And I think we'll see what happens, but hopefully, like I said, the Bills brought these guys in to make more of an impact in the locker room. And I think they can contribute to the passing game, but the presence of those guys around it makes a difference. And anyone that doesn't see that, and anyone that expects production out of these guys like they had 2 years ago, it's just not fathomable.
Yeah. Well, I'll bring up this question we got. What are your thoughts on Khalil Shakir? I'll let you go first. What do you think about just how the Bills have handled him, his play when he does play? Just your overall thoughts on him.
I mean, it's interesting because I know he had that good game in Pittsburgh where he had like he had a good game in Pittsburgh, like 3 catches for like 70 yards and a touchdown. So that's interesting that he hasn't really been utilized by the Bills since then, but I think maybe they have a plan for him. I'm not really like concerned about it because of the fact that I think McKenzie the last few weeks has played good football. I think, the weather conditions were very bad, and he talks about that in the podcast as well with Tyler Dunn. The weather conditions weren't that good. I think it's hard to throw the ball. And, but at the end of the day, they want to play at home. They want to have that home field advantage because the fans, that's the best advantage you can get. But I think that, Shakir, I'm not too worried. I mean, he'll probably have a chance to be that slot guy within the next couple of years, but I don't think he's ready right now. And I think McDermott really, really takes a process. I mean, you see our first round pick this year is getting, a healthy scratch. So there's a lot that goes into it. Benford is another guy that they drafted in the 7th round, but all of a sudden, they were putting him in over Elam, who was the first round pick in week 1. So they've always been very, interesting with their rookies and secretive. So we'll see what happens. But Shakir, it's a wait and see approach, and I think in the next couple of years he'll have his opportunity.
Yeah, and I think also bringing Beasley back, I mean that's huge learning opportunity for Shakir, right? Like that's I think the role that they imagine for Shakir once Beasley's officially gone, and if McKenzie ends up retiring, like that's the role that they picture him in. But at the same time, I have wondered why he hasn't seen the field more, because when he's on the field, I feel like he does play well, right? He drew a penalty last game. I know he didn't play too much last game, but he looks pretty good on the field. I like him. But obviously the way McDermott handles rookies, I mean, you just mentioned it with Elam, and I was actually going to get into that right after and ask you a question about it. But yeah, I mean, you see it where they ease them into it depending on who you are. If they think that you need some time to kind of take some games off, take some snaps off just to learn, they'll do that. They're not afraid to put you on the bench, right? They even though they've spent a 1st round pick, 5th round pick, whatever it is, they will do what they think is best for you, best for the team. But yeah, that brings me to my next question for you, which obviously Kaiir Elam played 1 snap on Sunday, and it was a special team snap where he was on the punt return team. But a lot of fans have also been talking where Dane Jackson's been struggling a little bit, right? And he had a strong last year. Last year was great for him. This year, he's kind of been struggling just a little bit, right? So what do you think of sitting Elam, not really playing him when Dane's struggling? Do you think – I know they came out and said they like how Dane's playing. What do you think of the cornerback situation, cornerback number 2 situation? Do you think they should go more Elam, or do you think they should just ride it out with Dane Jackson?
Well, it's funny because I think every year there's this one player on the Bills that everyone has this conversation about, will he be able to, get this spot, or will he be able to secure that spot? I honestly think towards the end of the year, I think Elam will get that cornerback 2 position locked up. I think obviously Benford when he gets back healthy, and, maybe Dane, he does make some plays sometimes. I don't think – obviously there's going to be a scapegoat for like every organization. That's how, fans are and media is. And I feel like it's McKenzie on offense and Dane Jackson on defense. So I think that Dane is really not played as bad as most people think. I'm not going to sit here and say he's played well, but I think his snaps should be, reduced a little bit. But no, I think Elam will figure it out. I think he comes from Florida, which is a man-heavy scheme. now coming to, the Bills where it's a zone heavy scheme. McDermott's, spoken about it that he's, they're teaching him his technique, new techniques, better ways to play zone defense. I think that's what he's learning. I don't think he's playing, exactly how they want him to. I think he needs to become a better tackler, more instinctive because you're playing his own defense. So I think it's a lot of those things where if he learns it, he learns it, and then he'll get out there. Or if he doesn't learn it and he keeps, because like I said, they take time. McDermott and Bean, their coaching staff, they always take time. So if he's really truly not ready, I could see like Xavier Rhodes going out there for a week then. But I think by the end of the year they're going to have one guy. And if I had to guess, although it sounds crazy, I think it'll be Elam.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I think it's they're easing them in, and you've seen it with a lot of rookies, not even just Khalil Shakir, right? You've seen it with James Cook, right? This year where they eased him in, and now all of a sudden he's starting to get more stamps. I think you've even seen it all the way back to Ed Oliver, where Ed Oliver, when he was a rookie, yeah, he obviously played a pretty good amount, but they weren't really using him to his full ability yet because they were teaching him still. You see it every single time we have a draft, I feel like, and it's a shock to everybody. And I think it's just because it is a first round pick, right? You spend a first round pick on someone, you expect them to play right away. Well, Epinesa hasn't. It was a second round pick. Boogie Basham was a second round pick. James Cook was a second round pick. Ed Oliver was a first, right? You go down that line, and these guys aren't going to be coming out guns blazing right away, right? I mean, Ed Oliver might have been the only exception where he played a lot more than most guys as his rookie year, but a lot of these guys don't come in right away for the Bills and become that day one starter. I mean, Benford obviously this year has been a little different, but Benford's played very well. Like that's the only difference, and it's different. Like you said, it's about schemes. It's about learning new techniques. That's the thing. Like I keep going back to Ed Oliver. That's exactly why Ed Oliver's rookie year. He was going completely different technique when he was coming here, right? It's completely different. These guys are learning something completely different. So I think it will end up either being Benford or Elam with a mix in of Dane Jackson and Xavier Rhodes by the playoffs. But I mean, we'll see. It's going to be the big question. I think honestly, cornerback, receiver, those are the only two big questions people have right now. And we'll end up getting those answers soon. But let's talk about real quick before we end the show. Let's talk about the game on Sunday. We talked about it a little bit, but
Saturday.
Not this upcoming one. This past week.
Okay.
We'll talk about both. Okay. But we'll start with the Jets game real quick. I mean, I just have to pull this up. I mean, this picture is just. This might have been the hardest hit I think I've ever seen live in my life. Like first of all, earlier in the game, Ed Oliver also lays a massive hit on Mike White. And I thought that was one of the biggest hits I've seen in person live. And then Milano ends up doing this. And I don't know where your seats are, but my seats are 300, right? You could see from the 300s this man's body fold in half. Like this picture, you could tell that his body was folded in half. So before we get into talk about the game, just what do you think about this hit? Obviously, Milano, some people say he's dirty. I think that's kind of crazy to say he's dirty. I think he's just a very hard hitter. What do you think of Milano's hit? What do you think of just Mike White? I have a lot of respect for Mike White now for standing in there. I'm shocked he came back in the game. So what do you think about Mike White, Matt Milano, all these hits that he took, and just how he came out firing on Sunday on the defensive side?
Yeah, it's funny because I like Mike White. Me and Matt Perino and Ryan Talbot. I produced the Shop podcast, so we're always joking about that. Actually, like the dynamic. They want me to like get a Mike White jersey and like be like a Mike White like stan and make like a whole Twitter account about it, like make it my personality. But I think Mike White. Honestly, like what does he have to lose? I think he was obviously healthy enough to go. I know he ended up in an ambulance after the game to go to the hospital. But that was just probably precautionary stuff, just to make sure that nothing was broken in the rib section. But I give him a lot of credit. He had really nothing to lose. You're 7-5. You need to win the game. Joe Flacco's your backup, who's older. Can't probably. I mean, at that rate with the weather conditions, he probably can't even make a throw past 10, 20 yards. So if he was healthy enough to play, it'd either be the comeback story and Mike White saved the day for the Jets and kept them alive in the playoffs, or wow, he played through that crazy hit. And what a strong, quarterback, and he showed a lot of will, and it makes your teammates want to, play for you. So I think that's what he did, and I think it's a really good approach. I think he did. I really didn't think he played that bad. And then in terms of the hit, I mean that was the most perfect hit I think you could ask for in today's NFL. He led with his shoulder midsection, didn't land on him, kept his arms off, did not put, didn't land on him. I think it was a perfect hit. Milano's not dirty. I mean, he does hit hard, and Mackenzie actually again in the podcast was talking about how he hits in practice pretty hard, but he's not dirty. But he likes to play football, and he likes to tackle, and he's one of the best at it in football. So good hit, Mike White. Props to you for sticking it out, and hopefully they can make a playoff run with him.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a lot of Jets fans thinking he's the guy, right? He's the guy. I mean, I've seen a couple of people saying they should go in next year with Mike White. And again, I really, like you said, I don't think he played bad on Sunday. I think he actually played pretty well. I mean, one of those hits. I don't think was it the Milano hit. It actually might have been the Milano hit. Did he complete that one?
No, I think that was the Ed one, and
that was the Ed one.
It's a Garrett Will. That was a dart. That was a dart.
Yeah, and he took another that was another shot. So he stands in the pocket, he makes throw. I mean, I really don't think he played bad. So maybe he's that guy for the Jets at least next year. I don't know. Maybe they move on to somebody else. But yeah, I mean, props to Mike White, Matt Milano. Unbelievable, man. Like he flies on the football field. It's every game, I think. Like, I went into the season thinking Milano was the best player on defense. Obviously, there's a couple guys that you could argue with Poyer, and Edmonds obviously this year has been great, but Von Miller when he was healthy. But I genuinely think Matt Milano is the most important player and the best player on our defense. And it's unbelievable what this guy does on a football field. I think he's a top 5 linebacker in the league. I think he makes every play. He flies around the football field, and that hit. I mean, that hit it's just one of those hits that you just have fun watching because you're like, oh, like this guy is the definition of football player where he's going to go out and give it his all. But regardless, we got the win. Mike White did play through injury, 20-12, a little closer than I think people wanted, but I also felt like we kind of controlled the game for most of the game. What do you think about the game, and what stood out to you the most from Sunday's game?
I think it was, another solid performance from the defense. Obviously, they played really well. Nice critical. DeMar Hamlin made a big play. Will hopefully give the kid some confidence with the fumble at the end of the game. But, I think the Bills played a pretty good game. Offensively, they moved the ball when they had to. I wouldn't say they moved it whenever they wanted to, but you got to remember this Jets defense. They haven't allowed, 28 plus points in the last 11 weeks. So you're looking at if your defense can hold them to what they held them to, then all you need is 13 points and you're going to win. So I think they won a game in tough conditions against a very elite defense and an offense the last 2 weeks that wasn't playing terribly. They got a lot of talent on the outside: Elijah Moore, Garrett Wilson, Xavier Knight, who's he's playing really well for them. And then I like Ty Conklin. I like their other Uzama is a contributor. So they got a lot of talent on the offensive side of the ball. Good win. Don't let the Jets sweep you. And like I said, the offense, hopefully they can figure it out. I think they're going to. I have a feeling they will, just because Josh Allen hasn't shown otherwise the past couple of years. So hopefully the offense can get back to itself. They have a couple easier defenses these last couple of weeks with Miami, Chicago. And since he's not the best either, I know New England end the year, but little weaker offenses to end the year. Allen played no turnover football, and we won the turnover margin. And that I think James Cook should have been used more, but that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, what you talked about with the defense, the Jet defense is good. It's a good defense, and putting up 20 points in that type of weather. And here's the thing that stood out to me the most was the amount of points that we could have had, right? If he leads John Brown just a little more, that's a touchdown. If he doesn't miss Diggs on the first drive of the game, that probably is a touchdown. I mean, it looks like Diggs would have had to beat one guy, and it would have been a foot race to the end zone maybe, but that's another play. I mean, it's just little things, and I think we'll get it. I mean, there's nothing that to me that says, oh, we won't get it together by the playoffs or whatever. I mean, and it was like you said, it was a bad weather game. You saw even Mike White miss throws. You saw, I mean, it was a really rough game to even. I mean, even as a fan to sit there, it was rough, right? And let alone play in a football game. So I think the team did what they needed to do, right? It wasn't the perfect game. I think as Bills fans, I say it all the time. We need to relax. We're not going to put up 40 points every game. We're not. It's just that's not the NFL, right? I mean, you see every week different teams struggle. Different. I mean, Chiefs put up 20 points a couple weeks ago. Obviously, they put up 34 this past week, but they almost lost again this past week to the Broncos. Like every team struggled, and I even saw Chiefs fans saying their fan base is even split. People saying we're not good enough to win a Super Bowl. Bills fans are doing the same thing. Every fan base does this, but just everybody's got to take a deep breath, relax. Once the only time that really, really, really matters is the playoff time. And if we win this weekend, we clinch that and we'll be there. And hopefully we can have a home game all the way through. But yeah, I mean, I think we played a good football game. We win, right? A win's a win in the NFL. I think that's the truest statement anybody can ever have in the NFL is that a win's a win, right? So
In life, man, that's the truest thing in
yeah,
life.
it's true in life. True in life, but even more true in a football game. But let's talk real quick before we get off because I know you gotta head off soon. We'll talk about the Dolphins game Saturday night. Big game, right? Big game. Dolphins have been struggling. Tua had a horrible game against the Chargers. I mean, it really was not him. Tyreek Hill's a little banged up. I think he's questionable still for Saturday. But what do you think going into this game? What's the big key to you on both sides of the ball, one side of the ball, or just in general? What do you think of this game coming up?
Yeah, I'll just give one key to the game, and then I'll talk about. I think Tyreek's playing. I saw that he spoke today and that he's all good to go. But for the key to the game, it will be not turning the ball over and winning the turnover margin in sloppy weather. I think that is the biggest key for this Bills team. They've had a couple weeks now where they haven't turned the ball over as much. The offense has played really well. In terms of taking care of the ball and moving it and scoring when they need to score. If they can continue to do that and not turn the ball over, I'm not really worried about, the Dolphins. I think that they're talented offensively, but I think our defense is so good, and with the weather conditions and them being in the cold, and none of those guys are used to it. They don't. You really think that team wants to come up to Buffalo on a Friday and play in a lake effect snowstorm? I mean, no one on that, even the coaching staff doesn't want to be there in terms of the weather. So I'm looking at a very low scoring game. I think in terms of what you would expect from these two teams going like at it. But the first matchup was 21-19. That was a weather game, and that was just heat. I couldn't imagine snow, wind. I mean, I don't know. I like Tua. I think he's proven a lot of people wrong, but I'm still not sold on him. And I think with the way they play is they'll put Tyreek in motion, and they'll put Waddle. They'll bracket with Waddle, and one of them will pick. They'll either follow each other in the middle, or one will break off to the middle, one will go to the outside. I think that if the Bills can control the middle of the field and keep leverage on the inside and not let them get to the middle, which is all Tua throws. He's the highest. He throws, I don't know the exact stats on that, but he throws probably I know for a fact he throws the most balls over the middle in the NFL. So keep the ball out of the middle and not turn the ball over. That's the key to the game. I'll even throw my prediction in right now. I got the Bills winning 16-10.
16-10. Well, that's an interesting story. I think a lot of fans would also come out of that game saying, "Oh, the offense is, it's horrible." We could have 8 feet of snow, and people would still be saying that the offense played horrible if they put up 20 points, right? But yeah, I think you nailed it with the defense. I think that's a big key. I think I'll go with the offense then. If they're key to the game, I think it's gonna be getting the run game going. You have to and stick with it. Don't abandon it. Especially if it's going to be windy, snowy, if it's going to be like that, you have to get the run game going and you have to stick with it. You can't abandon it after a quarter or a one half of football, right? I think getting James Cook, getting Devin Singletary going, maybe even some little pitches like we've been getting, or little jet sweeps with Hines. Just get them the ball in their hands. Get Dawson Knox involved too. Look what happens when Dawson Knox gets involved. I mean, it's fun to watch Dawson Knox with the football in his hands. I mean, that touchdown, that flip was amazing. So I think just little short passes that kind of complement the run game, and maybe we see Beasley come into factor there with the short passes. But I think getting the run game going is a huge thing. And even if it's not getting going, they have to stick with it. I think, and they have to just continue to pound the rock. So I wrote that with the offense, and I think my prediction, I'm going to go with 25 to 19.
Man, you do weird scores, man.
Hey, has there been a non-weird score this whole season? 20 to 12? Do you think anybody's guessing 20?
I think 25-19 might be a scorigami. You're looking at a scorigami.
I'll see.
How do you getting 25 points in a game? 20 to 10, you get a safety, and then you add a field goal.
Well, I mean, you could get 10 points and then 3 field goals, so it'd be 6 field goals. And all right, I like to go. Don't. No,
you can keep your prediction. Keep your prediction. Stick to your word, but
no, I am. I'm just saying. Why are you coming after me with my scores here?
Because it's got to be a score. Because you're predicting a scorigami. So if this hits, you better send a clip to the scorigami Twitter website.
25 to 19. Has it happened? It has happened. It's happened.
It has happened?
It's happened a couple times. 7 games. 7 times in history.
Wow.
So
I think your prediction last week was like 32 to something. Something. You just like throwing the numbers out there, man.
Hey, well, because that's the thing. Like you always say, like, oh, you'll see, big set 27 to 10, 27 to 17. Yeah. Like those are the generic scores, but I feel like this whole season the scores have been a little weird. I feel like, at least for the Bills, like 20 to 12 is
weird. 20 to 12 is weird. Yeah.
I can't remember the Pats game right now for some reason.
24-10. That was pretty basic.
But like
Dolphins was 21-19. Titans 41-7.
Even 21-19 is kind of a weird.
21-19 is weird. Like I would never predict 21-19.
Yeah, like let's right before we leave, I'll pull the Bills schedule up right here. How many weird scores have we had this year? I mean, 31-10. That's pretty generic. 41-7.
I mean, that's extreme, but it's like 41's a number like that you could.
Yeah, 23-20. That's a regular score. I guess we haven't had that many. I mean, 33-30 is a pretty weird one.
Yes.
28-25.
That's weird too.
And then 23 or 31-23. So there's been a couple. But I just like going with the weird scores, I guess, right?
All right, I like it. So what you got? 25-19 Bills?
Yeah, 25-19 Bills. You got what, 16-10 Bills? I mean, as long as there's Bills, we got whoa, we got a restriction here. 11-5. Now, if that happens, I'll Venmo you $50 if that happens. I'm so confident that score doesn't, but that would be sick if that happens.
That would be 3 field goals and a safety for the Bills and a field goal and safety for the Dolphins.
Yeah, that is a wild score. I like it though. I love it. Chris gets it. Chris gets that the weird scores are better.
Good job, Dad.
Yeah, I mean, even mine is. I mean, I thought mine was a little crazy. I mean, 11-5. If that happens, though, I'll literally Venmo him $50. But hey, as long as I get the win, right? I don't care how it comes. As long as I get the win.
Win's a win, man.
Win's a win. But all right, I think that's gonna do it for us. You got anything else?
That's it.
Anything you want to say before we head off? I know you can mention the your article again. Where to find it?
Oh yeah, Syracuse.com, NYF.com. Aye-Aye-Ajay's article, kind of just looking at, did the Bills make the right choice in that, and what he's kind of been doing. I have a quote from one of the interviews they've done over there about him. Very well-rounded guy, very good player. It's exciting for what's happening. As the Giants have kind of gotten, back down to earth throughout the year, I think Hodgins has kind of taken that role. He's had 2 touchdowns the last 2 weeks. So props to a guy whose career, he probably set, who knows, but what he was thinking the first 2 years. But he had not played football for 2 years of his life, and to come out there and run that nice route, a really nice route, that was good. So check that out, and then I'll be producing the Shop podcast in about 15 minutes. So head over there. It's always a good time with a lot of laughs. So.
Yeah, well, we're plugging today because I will tomorrow. It was supposed to be today, but we had some things happen. So tomorrow I'll have a Cole Beasley article actually coming out, just kind of explain what to expect from him, what he's done the past few years on the field, what to expect in this offense. So that should be coming out tomorrow. That's going to be at the Around the Block Network, which is atvnetwork.com. Check out AJ's, check mine out. See what you like. Share it. If we'd appreciate it if you share it. Appreciate it if you share this episode as well. And if anybody ever has questions, or anybody ever wants to be a guest on the show, let us know. But as always, go Bills and go Sabres. Sabres are playing tonight, so and go Sabres. So
What's the score?
Oh, I don't know. I'm gonna put the game on after. I always started at the beginning. I don't.
Guess the score on the first.
2-1.
0-0.
Damn. Oh,
Comrie's probably in that. Comrie's probably in that. So that's why.
We'll see. Well, even though Comrie's not been the best goalie for us so far, Craig Anderson, 42-year-old, love him. But yeah, we'll check us out on Twitter. Make sure to follow along for our next live show. And thanks for watching, everybody.